But I feel
Yeah.
like ultimately, if you want to value somebody, you got to learn about them. You got to learn
Yes.
about their story. And so I think this has really been a huge blessing. Like it makes my heart so happy anytime a child is doing a mission because I know that they are helping an older person feel seen and heard. Um, and that I think that's something that we have kind of forgotten, in many ways neglected to love the older person, even if we see them often. We haven't
Ye-
given them a voice.
Hello and welcome to Eternal Echoes, where we ask older Christians to share wisdom and lessons learned on their walk of faith, remember and proclaim God's goodness and faithfulness, and seek to uncover eternal truths that can help guide future generations. My name is Katharine Rose, and I'm your host. Thank you for joining me. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Eternal Echoes podcast. So, today I'm super excited because we have the pleasure of hearing from Isabel Tom. And I invited Isabel to come on the show because we are in the final week of Older American Month. Older Americans Month has been throughout May, and Isabel just shares a heart and a passion for the older generation like I do and for connecting generations. And so I thought it would be fun to have her on to get her perspective, to hear someone other than myself talk about how much they love older people. And so Isabel is a mom, a wife, a daughter, and retired granddaughter. She is also the author of The Value of Wrinkles, a young perspective on how loving the old will change your life. And she's the creator of the Grandkid Investigator Kit. She has also been featured on national and local television, such as ABC 7's Good Morning Washington and NBC4, and has been interviewed on shows like Building Relationships with Dr. Gary Chapman and AARP's Take on Today. Isabel grew up in a multi-generational household and took part in caring for her grandparents who lived to 98 and 102. Professionally, she has served in the senior living and hospice care field. Isabel holds a Master of Public Health from the University of Maryland. So, Isabel, I'm so grateful you're here, and I want to welcome you to the podcast.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, it's just an honor, honestly, to have you on. It's been such a joy connecting with you. I was trying to remember. I think I found you on Instagram, and I saw that you had a book called The Value of Wrinkles, and it was like that moment. I was like, okay, we got to be friends. To just come across someone who really has that passion and heart for and sees the value in older people. So I want to kind of just start by asking you about your passion, about your background and story. How did this passion of yours evolve?
Yeah, I would never have planned this story on my own. So I do think that God is the creator, He's the ultimate author of good stories. So, I grew up living with my grandparents, and my parents. My grandparents moved into the house before I was born. I basically lived in a multi-generational household for the first 26 years of my life. And then professionally, I worked in the senior care field. So right out of college, got a job at a retirement community, and then also had the opportunity to work in hospice care. And God really changed my heart and gave me this perspective where, I really didn't expect it. I was just looking for a job, but He really helped me to see the value of every person as they age. And I
Mm,
realized that this was very contradictory to the way the world seemed to value older people and people as they age. So it's been something that He continues to show me, with every older person that I meet.
yeah, that's so beautiful. I mean, the whole concept even of being in a multi-generational home and growing up, I mean, it's so foreign in America, but I know other cultures that is the norm. So can you talk a little bit about like what was that like growing up, and how did that shape your life and your perspective?
Yeah, I thought it was fairly normal, but then as I got older, I realized no, none of my classmates, they don't live with their grandparents. And so, I mean, that was just how life was for me, where my grandparents, they were part of my immediate family. So you might say, oh, I have, four people who are in my family, my siblings and my parents. But for me, I considered my grandparents as part of my immediate family. I mean, they ate dinner with us every night. They went with church with us every Sunday. And, I don't think at that time I could have been able to express that there was value in that. I
Sure.
think I was just a kid. But I think what it really taught me is one, it taught me to one, realize that not everybody is like me. Because I
Yes.
think when you are around people who are your own age, I mean, you kind of just start to only look at life as if you were a teen or as a kid. But
Yeah.
living with an older person, as I watched my grandparents age, I started to realize, oh, what is really easy for me is actually really hard for them. So there are these really small moments that I think cumulatively added up to the point where I worked in the senior care field and I started to learn this, for my job. And it just helped me have a long term perspective where I didn't look at things, just like we're encouraged to have an internal perspective. I think
Yeah.
so many times we have this short term perspective. But I
Yeah.
think when you spend time with the older generation, it allows you to see things from in a longer time span, a longer range.
Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine too, just in the senior care field, working in that, well, and with your grandparents too, just recognizing what really matters in life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like when you see someone reach the end of in the end of their life, like you said, it really does provide a different perspective on maybe the things that are consuming our focus and attention, or are that we're worried about right now actually don't matter in the grand scheme of things. And I think older people can really provide that perspective for us.
Yeah, I think definitely when I was in my 20s and I was working at a retirement community, you don't experience death that often as a 20-something-year-old, but it was something where, I mean, it didn't happen all the time because at that time I was working with independent living residents, but um, it helped you realize that life is not something that's, you're not invincible. And just like, when you're at church and you're singing these worship songs about dying, like you don't usually actually think of death. But when you
Right.
work with people and you see like earthly life end, it kind of hits you. And I would say that it helps me live better because I appreciated the fact that not just my physical health, but I appreciate
Yeah.
the fact that I had breath and I had
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. So, what about, in living with your grandparents, were there certain things that they passed on to you, whether it was words of wisdom or just life lessons, life advice that you sort of absorbed from them, or maybe had conversations with them throughout growing up that sort of stayed with you?
Yeah, I mean, so I wouldn't say we necessarily had a lot of heart to heart talks, but there are definitely things that they taught me. So my grandpa, he was a healthy guy and he walked every single day. He had discipline, walked every single day for an hour and 15 minutes until he was 97 years old.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
I remember him, it was just part of my day that I would just see him put on his shoes and then go out. And no matter how slow he walked, I mean, he walked for an hour and 15 minutes, which is a long time.
That
So I
is a long
think
time.
just seeing that rhythm, just seeing that routine,
Yeah.
really taught me about health, physical health, and how it really can help.
Yeah.
With my grandma, she lived to 102, so I was 35 when she passed, and I attribute like my faith to watching her because I would say
Oh,
the closest I got to seeing what the love of Jesus is like, it was watching her because she was just so selfless. And I also watched her live out her faith. Like my dad, her son died before she did. So she lived to
wow.
102 and
Wow.
he died right before she turned 100. And I
Wow.
saw her because I spent a lot of time with her. I saw her question God. I saw
Wow.
her ask, just sit there and grieve. But I realized that you can do that. You can do
Yeah.
that. God allows for that. And so growing up as pastor's kid, a lot of what I heard, like, I think I learned what faith is like through my grandma, just
Yeah.
seeing her in her highs and her lows. Um, and she taught me how to pray, I would say, like
Oh,
just prayer warrior all the way up
yes.
until she passed. So,
Oh, that's so beautiful. That legacy of faith, right? That passing
mhm.
on, I think is so beautiful. Um, so talk a little bit about, you have this book called Value of Wrinkles. So tell us sort of how that came about, and what the message is in that book, and the practical sort of tools and tips for the younger generation connecting with the older generation.
Well, when I was working in the senior care field and I was in my 20s, a lot of people asked me, oh, wow, that's so sad that you work with older people. And I actually thought it was like one of the best jobs ever. So
Yeah.
I had started this blog and I ended up blogging on it for about 10 years. And when my grandma passed, she was my last living grandparent. I thought, oh, now I can blog a lot because, now I can get the message out there. Um, and it ended up that I learned how to create a proposal to write a book.
Yeah.
Um, but I realized at that time that God had given me 35 years of experience living with, serving, working with older adults. And He had given me a picture into what aging is like as a younger person.
Yeah.
But I realized, just like you, that older adults, they need a voice and they want
Yes.
to have a voice, but a lot of times they either don't have energy to do it, or people aren't listening. So I was
Yes.
thinking, oh, at this time of my life, people are listening. And while a 90-year-old could still write the same story, let me use my platform, let me use my youth to be able to be a voice for the older generation and show people, um, really, that there truly is value
Yeah.
in somebody who's older, and to kind of see it from the perspective that God sees it.
Yeah, it's so, I just love it, especially in our culture right now, particularly in America. I mean, the emphasis is on the youth, and I think we are sorely missing the value and perspective and life experience that does come from age. And so I love that that has just been impressed upon your heart as well. Um, so talk a little bit about the work that you're doing now in helping kids connect with their grandparents, with, making that bridge, building that bridge between the generations. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So after I published my book, I realized that a lot of people are looking at my story and thinking, oh, that's beautiful. Like, you grew up living with your grandparents, but I'm never going to have that story because I'm not going to live with, I don't live with my in-laws. I don't live with my
Right.
parents. And we're not going to have that. But I realized I don't want people to think that this is just a story that is like far off, and so I really wanted to help parents specifically and grandparents to be able to connect the generations together. But I realized we have to, as parents, we have to be intentional about this. Or if you're in the middle, you've got to be intentional about it. And
Yes.
there are so few resources, if any, that help parents to connect the older and younger generations together. And with that background, working in senior care, but also as somebody who has worked with kids a lot and has kids and coaches and all of that, I was like, okay, I need to put something together that will not only make this easy for parents, but make it meaningful for the
Yeah.
older person and make it fun for the kids. So
Yeah.
created this Grandkid Investigator concept that really helps kids to be able to prompts them and guides them through they're basically investigating their grandparents, to investigate and uncover truly, like, there are so many stories, so many things that we
Yeah.
don't know about somebody who's older.
Yes.
And so I created this tool to really be able to help other people to see the value of the older generation.
Yeah, and what has been sort of how do kids respond to that? Like, what has their feedback been in that process of getting them involved? And can you just talk a little bit about, are they like willing to? Are they eager? Do they walk
Sure,
away
yeah.
excited? Yeah.
Truthfully, a lot of parents, they say, oh, I don't know if my kids will want to do that. And I think that is completely valid. Kids want to do things that are immediately fun, right?
Yeah.
So what has happened is with the Grandkid Investigator Kit, a lot of kids initially, they're like, I don't know. But
Yeah.
once they do the missions, I have found that they actually their favorite part is asking their grandparents these questions and finding out these different facts. And for me, it's been, I just released an episode this morning about the things that kids have learned from their grandparents, and it's like they learn things that they might have never known, or even the adult child may have never known, like
Yeah.
um everything from one investigator, she found out that her grandma really doesn't like water at all.
Oh,
And
wow.
while these are like small facts, you would say, they're actually really important. One, these kids are learning about their grandparents, so they realize that they are more than just a history book.
Yeah.
They are people now. And so they have preferences now, but they are also learning about their grandparents' preferences, so that my hope is that they would take part in caring for their older loved one as they age.
Yeah.
Because I think so often we just think adults have to do it. The adult
Yeah.
child has to do it. But I
Right.
think that kids, um, I actually pulled up this verse from First Timothy 5:4 that talks about how grandchildren, like, they have this call to love the older person, specifically widows, right? And this is pleasing
Yes.
to God. So, really, I'm just trying to equip kids, parents to be able
Yeah.
to value and honor their elders more.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, with the Grandkid Investigator Kit, on the other side of that, like the grandparents, what has their response and feedback been like as well?
Oh, they always love it. I mean, they're the ones who, I think so often grandparents are the ones who are trying to reach out to their grandkids, trying to develop that relationship. So they are asking the grandkids questions, and it's always about the grandkids, how was your day? What do you like? But rarely do the grandkids ask them questions. But I feel
Yeah.
like ultimately, if you want to value somebody, you got to learn about them. You got to learn about
Yes.
their story. And so I think this has really been a huge blessing. Like, it makes my heart so happy anytime a child is doing a mission, because I know that they are helping an older person feel seen and heard. Um, and that I think that's something that we have kind of forgotten, in many ways neglected, to love the older person, even if we see them often. We haven't given them a voice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the work that you are doing in that. And so what do you think is like this biggest barrier and challenge to connecting the generations?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna say that I think it's not the parents' fault, but I think the parents are the connectors, and so there is not this awareness that we have to be intentional in helping our kids connect with their older loved ones, with their
Yeah.
grandparents. And so not only are there not enough resources, there's not a lot of time,
Yeah.
but I think we really need parents to realize that this is an important thing.
Yeah.
And it is just as important to me. It is about developing our kids' character, to teach them a long-term perspective, um, allowing them to meet people and to connect with people who are different than them is a
Yep.
really important thing. So, just like you have your kids do piano lessons and make sure they do extra math homework, like I want my kids to connect with their grandparents, because I think this is a life lesson. It teaches them life lessons, but it teaches them, um, I think it exposes them to somebody who can teach them the love that, God has for us.
Yeah.
That same love of just slowing down and giving us intention and availability.
Yeah, amen. And I love that word that you've used several times, is being intentional, right? Being
Hmm.
intentional about doing these things, just like you
Yeah.
would other healthy habits. It's like this is it. And actually, I mean, and there is so much research, right, that
Hmm.
supports the intergenerational connection, and both for
Hmm.
the youth, how it benefits the youth, and how it benefits the older people. So,
Hmm.
but you have to. It starts with being intentional, and I
Yes.
love that you are facilitating and creating a space for to help people do that. So Isabel, tell us, or tell my listeners, where they can learn more about you, connect with you, find out more information on your book and the Grandkid Investigator Kit.
Sure. Well, the first place to start, I would say, is valueofwrinkles.com. And I have a newsletter that they can sign up for, valueofwrinkles.com/sign up. And then if they want to get their hands on the Grandkid Investigator Kit, they can go to valueofwrinkles.com/GKI. And that's where they can get the Grandkid Investigator Kit. I have a digital and I have an actual box that they can get sent to their door for the next month. That's something that I have available.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Any final words before we sign off?
No, I think I just want to be a support to parents, and I also want to give grandparents a chance to feel seen and heard. And I think that relationship is just such a beautiful relationship, but it definitely takes, like we said, like intention to build it and build a stronger bond.
Amen. Well, Isabel, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Eternal Echoes podcast. If your soul was nourished in any way by today's episode, I'd be so grateful if you share it with others, share it on social media, or take a quick moment to leave a rating or review. Also, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Eternal Echoes Ministry. Thank you for joining me, and may God bless you today and always.